One of my most watched and commented on videos is the one on narcissistic adult children, where I talk really about the problem. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about dealing with your narcissistic adult children. And there's no way that I'm going to cover every situation and issue that you could be dealing with, because I know that there are all kinds of different ones. And so what I want to do is just give you some ideas of options that you have for dealing with some of the narcissistic traits that your adult children are exhibiting. And they're painful. The stories just literally break my heart when I read the responses to that video. It's just absolutely horrible to be dealing with that situation. So hopefully you can use some of these skills and get some change if possible, at least in the way you respond to it and the way you are affected by it before it gets out of control. So the first thing is the entitlement. Narcissistic adult children are extremely entitled. Entitled to money, entitled to your money, entitled to material things, entitled to getting their way, entitled to not having to work, entitled to all kinds of things. They are literally entitled. And partially because of society, having been we're so materialistic, and there's so many things that we have, new cell phones, new clothes all the time, expensive brand name shoes. Young kids buy Starbucks when they're little, $6 for a cup of coffee, $5 for a cup of coffee or a special drink, and going out to eat all the time. And so it's just a very entitled, materialistic society. With the entitlement, you've got to just say no and recognize the entitlement never ends. If they're entitled now, if you give in, they will be entitled later. And there will be more and more desire for you to bail them out, to help them. The entitlement is huge. There is a lack of work ethic. There is a perception that they are worth more than they are, expecting all kinds of special treatment. I'll give you an example. In our business, my husband and I have a small construction company, and we hired a 21-year-old, which had been a while since we had done that, but we were told that he was a really good worker and that he really wanted to do it. And he came out, watched the job, knew what it was, and said, sure. So the first week, and he was physically capable of doing what we needed him to do. So the first week he worked Monday, Tuesday. And this was for a full-time position, okay? 40 hours a week. Took Wednesday off to rest. Took Thursday back to work, came back to work on Thursday, and then took Friday and Saturday off to rest. Saturday, meaning that was part of his weekend, and Sunday. And then on Monday morning said, okay, I think I'll be ready to come back Tuesday after I rested Monday. So obviously we did not keep him, but then he expected to get paid for the days that he was off. It was a per hour job. We all know what per hour means. It's for per hour you show up. So out of 5 days, he worked 3 days, and he wanted to be paid for 5 days. And that was normal to him. So that's craziness if you recognize the reality of that. And yet this is what these young people have been raised with, the idea that they get paid for not working. So entitlement, you've got to just say no at some point, because otherwise it'll never end. I mean, I have all kinds of examples of people who have said, should I give my adult child who has wasted a lot of money, who's lost a lot of money, who lives high, should I give that child half of my retirement and be left with, only $10,000 for my whole retirement? No. The time to say no. After that, you're going to give your other 10,000, but why would you possibly give half of your retirement that you've worked for to somebody who doesn't handle money well? And if they're not entitled to half your retirement, to even ask that is so presumptuous, absolutely so presumptuous. I've had other people, their kids expect to live in their house and expect the parents to move out to give the house to the kids. expect to get extra money, expect a new car. When are you going to buy me my new car? It's craziness, but it is time to say no. You might want to give warning, like, that I'm going to be cutting off your allowance or your stipend in a month or 2 months or whatever that is, or pretty soon you're going to be paying for your own cell phone. I mean, you've got to put these things down because at some point they're going to get mad at you anyway. So you might as well start sooner rather than later. The next one are the demands. Demand that you do what they want, demands that you're there whenever they need you to babysit their kids, that you cancel your plans, that you have holidays exactly when they say it in their way, that they get to go on your vacation and then they don't have to participate, that they just all the different demands that they would have, demands that you go along with what they say, demands that you act a certain way, demands that you respond to them in a certain way. Again, demands are the same thing as entitlement. They're never going to stop unless you set a precedent that you're not going to give in to demands that you are not comfortable with, and that they can ask, but no demands are okay. You can't make demands, you can only ask. And if I say no, then the answer is no. And if there's going to be punitive responses and anger and cutting you off and responding to you in a very negative, hurtful, disrespectful way, then maybe they don't get to ask anymore. So these are boundaries. Now, narcissistic children, people do not accept boundaries. They don't like them. They punish you. They respond to you in a way that causes problems in your relationship. So you have to be ready for that. You have to count the cost, decide what are you willing to do. But some of them may still have room to learn and adjust and, be able to make some changes. So this is a kind of a thing you've got to weigh every situation that you have and as far as what's going to happen with it and make your own decisions. So when narcissistic people, no matter what age, don't get what they want, they rage. Rage meaning screaming, yelling, throwing a fit, mistreating you, criticizing you, saying horrible things about you. You don't have to listen to that. You can say no. You can say, I'm not going to talk to you when you're yelling at me. I've had people write me and say, my young child, adult child, calls and just berates us and tells us how horrible we are and how abusive we are and swears at us on the phone. And if we don't give in to saying we're going to give money, it's just a torrent of abusive comments. Can I hang up? Yes, you can and you should. And you don't have to answer the phone when that person calls you back. You don't have to answer the phone even if it is your child. You don't have to tolerate the rage. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to put up with it. And recognize that that child is thinking, I can do this, and this parent will either give in or just put up with this from me. The next is the accusations that you're a terrible person, that you're a horrible parent, that you're awful, you don't love them, you're mean, all of this. I mean, again, you don't have to defend yourself to those, because the more that you defend crazy accusations, the more power they have. And the more the person can start throwing examples at you and things to possibly wear you down and kind of twist it to where you feel like, yeah, that really is something where I'm not, I really am I'm wrong. So don't defend it. Don't defend craziness. Don't rationally try to talk to an irrational, narcissistic rage of accusations that are not true from a mind that perceives things from a narcissistic standpoint, which is that you don't have rights, you don't have feelings, you don't have the right to have boundaries, you don't have the right to say no. You can't rationalize with that thinking. You can't rationalize with a person who believes those things. So don't respond to the accusations unless they're said to somebody else that you need to, for your own sake, decide you want to set the record straight. And then you have the choice of doing that. You can say, this isn't true. This is craziness. These are lies. If you want to, but you don't have to. That's up to you. Sometimes the more you feed the fire, the bigger the fire gets. It's always up to you to make that decision. Then there's opinions. The opinions of our young adult children, our children in their 30s, are very different, a lot of them, than what we raised them to have. They are affected by society. They are affected by a very, just a society and culture that is very humanistic, very secular, not value-oriented. Anything goes. You can do anything you want. It's a me first generation. Do what feels good. There are no rights and wrongs. If it feels right for you, then it's right. I mean, some of these things I read through some of the Barna statistics, which were looking at the values of the different generations of kids, and one of the younger generations, I think it's the Gen Y generation. It's like, to them, lying is okay. Like, lying is not bad. Lying is, if you need to, you need to. Like, no big deal. These are the lack of values that our children have been raised with in our culture, not necessarily our home, but in our culture. And it is just horrifying to think about this. And it's not good. But and then the opinions that they have politically, and the opinions that they have about life and society, they're very different than a lot of the things that we raised our kids with. You don't have to agree with them to be accepted by them. You don't have to even have arguments about them, but you do have to recognize that you may not be able to change them. Time maybe will change them, maturity, but you may not be able to. A lot of them are literally brainwashed to think that way. They haven't been taught in schools to reason, to rationally work through things and make logical deductions, and to have that kind of thinking. You may not be able to. If they believe something, you can say, I'm sorry, I disagree with you, or let's agree not to argue if it's going to be a shouting match or screaming. If there is open conversation, awesome. Then you need to recognize that they've been taught something different and they have a different idea, and you need to be open to listening to it. And maybe there will be some, give and take where you can go back and talk about the ideas in a deeper way. But only if there's going to be mutual respect can you possibly do that. And I would not try to force and shove my ideas onto your kids. They know what you believe. My kids know what I believe, know what I taught them when they grew up. And so, arguing is foolishness. It's futile to argue with somebody who is not listening and not open to your ideas. Then there is blame, all the blame that they'll throw at you, not taking any responsibility for their own choices, for the own outcome of those choices. What I teach people to do with blame is to put up a shield and just say these blame darts. If it's your fault this, you ruined my life. It's your fault that I'm not succeeding. It's your fault this. It's your fault because you didn't give me money. You didn't save my car before I left, or before it was going to get taken away and repossessed. You didn't buy it for me. All of these things, blame, blame, blame. People that cannot take responsibility for their own selves have to blame someone or something. And you as the parent are the best target because you care, you're vulnerable, you raised that kid, they know that you care, right? They know it. So to blame you they know they can pierce you. And so it's going to work. Maybe you're going to actually help them because they're blaming you. You're going to have misguided responsibility and feel responsible for their choices. And you're going to jump in and take it over and fix it. So the blame comes from the anger that they have within themselves, the unhappiness, the resentment, the failure that they're not able to embrace and understand and recognize as possibly their own. So when the blame comes, again, put up that shield that says, let the darts hit and fall flat to the ground. You know that's not true. Don't take it on. Don't even think about it. Don't argue it. You can just say something like, I disagree with you. I don't think that's true. Sorry you feel that way. I totally speechless. I don't know why you feel that way about us, but It's really sad. You can offer to go to counseling if you think that might possibly work and the child is willing to go. You can offer to pay for it and go to family counseling, see if you can have a counselor that intervenes and helps to mediate. But you don't have to take the blame on unless it's true, and then take whatever responsibility you should. Don't let the kid beat you up over it. Say it, apologize, own it, but then don't allow the kid to mistreat you over it. Also, their sensitivity, and this gets to craziness, sensitive about things that make absolutely no sense to you, that are just, unpredictable, something that you did right that the kid takes wrong, something that you said that was just benign and now the kid's all up in arms, something you told someone else, something that you offered, maybe you insulted the girlfriend or the boyfriend or the husband or the wife, and it's just this vitriol that just comes back at you for something that you're just like, what the heck? I didn't even recognize that wasn't okay. Like, maybe you showed up at the house without asking, or dropped something by instead of calling first, or just really tiny things. Addressed your child first instead of the child's girlfriend or boyfriend, or didn't send an invitation, or didn't invite them somewhere. I know you got lots of examples. So that sensitivity, again, you can't own it. You can't walk on eggshells. You can make decisions when it comes to like your grandkids, as I've told you, to not purposefully fight something that you're not going to get anywhere with, and know that they're going to be insulted and as a result refuse to let you see the grandkids. If you can not walk on eggshells, but walk carefully to where that doesn't happen, that is your choice. There are some people that have said it's too much. I can't do it. I need to cut it off. I need to not be involved. Understandable. Okay. There's that all the time. There are decisions where people have to make that. That's sad. It's hard, but maybe you do need some distance. But that sensitivity is just, don't take it on. It's like, recognize that when you're dealing with somebody that's super sensitive, you can only do so much to not have that person react and get insulted. And you just got to detach from it when it happens and just say, it's not what I meant, and let the person deal with it. The last thing, or second to last thing, is a lack of natural affection. And this is something that really perplexes me, because when we look back on even my upbringing, I respect my parents. My dad was an alcoholic. He's not an alcoholic now. He stopped drinking when I was 17. So there's no reason for me to feel that it's toxic to be involved with him and my mom, who are still together. But I would never disrespect or mistreat my parents or not be there for them in a reasonable way in their older age. I would never cut my parents off from my children. And because I got mad at them for something, I wouldn't even want to do that to my children. But this lack of natural affection, this lack of respect, I think it is, lack of honor that they have in their relationships is a cultural thing. We haven't taught them that. We've taught them that they're so special, that they're the center. And they don't know how to give and how to extend that and how to value relationships and respect their elders and to be in that family unit, because they've just been like, they are it. That's it. That's all that matters. It's easy for them to walk away from families. It's easy for them to not have their parents in their lives. It's easy for them to take the grandkids away. These things are not normal. This is not a normal foundational structure of society that this is now happening in our young people. This is not good. It has to do with the lack of the respect and the valuing of the family unit in our culture. Politically, there's a lack of valuing the family, and it is going to have major consequences, and it is, and it's actually caused a lot of pain in people's lives. And then the last thing is what you have to do along with detaching and not arguing and making your choices, and standing up to the entitlement and standing up to the abuse And all of those things that I've said is you need to grieve. Grieve for the loss of the child that you thought you were going to have in your life when you raised that child to leave your home and you went from an empty nester into your end of your life. You expected to have a child that you could enjoy, that you could enjoy your grandchildren, that would care about you, not take care of you and do everything for you, but care about you, and that you could enjoy and have a relationship. And not having that and being deprived of that and having that taken away from you and then blamed for it, and is so confusing to have your kid tell you, well, it's because of you, because you're awful, you're horrible, you didn't do this, you won't do this for me, you're this terrible person. Going through all of that is just painful. But when you get down to it, you've got to recognize this is not the child that I raised. This is, and whatever part you did have in it where you know, hey, I made some mistakes. Yeah, okay, we all make mistakes. It's the best that we can do. We did the best we could. We can't change it. You could begin to go from now, but you have to grieve losses. And the first thing you do is you go through this denial, the shock and denial. This can't be happening. This isn't my reality. This isn't really my kid. The kid's going to change. The kid's going to get better. The kid's going to figure it out. And then the anger. You're angry at the kid, angry at society, maybe you're angry at a spouse who did things with this kid that has entitled this kid. Maybe it's an ex-spouse, maybe it's a grandparent, maybe it's other significant people, maybe it's the child's spouse. And you're angry at that person. Maybe it's the child's spouse's parents. So it's your son or daughter's in-laws that have made them so entitled, giving them everything. So grieve, be angry, let the anger be there, be appropriate with it, but work through the anger. And then there's a bargaining process. This bargaining process is where your mind, even in your subconscious, tries to work it out. What could I have done to make it different? What could I do now to make it different? What could I do to make this person, my child, care and be reasonable and rational to where I could fix this and do something? I mean, there's bargaining with God, bargaining with your spouse. Well, if I do this, will you do this? Or will you please stop doing that? If only I had done this earlier, then this wouldn't have happened. Maybe I, divorced the other parent quicker, or maybe not divorced, or maybe it was a different way you would raise the child. All of these bargaining things that we do, that if this, if this, if this, if this, those are normal. That's part of the grieving process. It's our subconscious trying to work out the problem to where it didn't happen. When you get to the end of that, you're going to know it really did happen, right? It happened. So then the sadness hits you, the grief, just the actual grieving part. That's what we think of as grief, but it's actually all of this. Just the sadness and the pain of accepting and knowing the loss is real and there's nothing you can do to change it, right? It is what you're really dealing with. You're not going to be able to fix it or undo it. So going through that sadness and that grieving, which you come out of. And on the other side of that, the whole purpose of grief is get to acceptance. And acceptance says, this is my reality. I have to accept it. I can't change it. I have to come to terms with it. And then I have to decide from that point how to live with it. So it's like, it is what it is. Now what? That is what acceptance is. And that's what you're doing with these ideas that I gave you, is you're thinking, this is who my kid is. This is what's going on. Now, how am I going to live with this and make a good life for myself that I deserve, in spite of the fact that this child that I had all these hopes and dreams for has turned out to be acting or is a narcissistic child, adult child that's bringing pain into my life. How am I going to do it? So these are some of the things you can do. Going through that grief process will help you a lot. And then one more thing, all of my videos on my website, on my YouTube channel, and my articles on my website, and the devotions that I write, and the books that I write, all of these will help you. They are all written and made for people who are in a difficult relationship. Your narcissistic adult child is manipulative. I've got videos on manipulation. Child is abusive. I've got videos on abuse. I've got videos on learning to take care of yourself with difficult people, speaking the truth to difficult people, how to not escalate arguments. Every single thing on my YouTube channel, which is almost 200 videos soon, all of those will help you and help you to become healthy, even though you have a narcissistic adult child. Give you the right to live your own life, give you the tools that you need to interact with this difficult person in your life. So there's not just a few videos for you. There are all kinds of videos. And I've written books for people in difficult relationships. All of it's on my website. So, and then I've got a new devotional coming out this December 2020. That is a daily devotional on how to live with difficult people with an index, topically indexed. So I have a wealth of information. So you've got plenty of tips and tools that you can use in addition to what I'm giving you in this video. So I think I made this longer than I intended. So thank you for watching this video and hopefully more on Change My Relationship. Thank you.